Perfect. Well, hello. I'm here tonight. My name is Laura from Healthy Carnivore. I'm here with Kerry Mann Jr., and he is from Homestead How. If you don't know him, I'll let him tell his own story, but he is somebody that has come onto the carnivore scene and has really helped get the word out there. He's working on some projects that I'll let him talk about. But it's just wonderful to have somebody that is so knowledgeable and you gain such knowledge in such a short amount of time. I've been doing this for almost 5 years. As of June, I'll be 5 years.
Wow.
Um, and it just gets better every year. So, with that, how about you give them some information about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations on 5 years too. I love hearing that it gets better and better because I think when I was
Every
at
year.
like month 3, someone said to me, "Just wait, it gets better." And I was. It's different for everyone, but for me, by month 3 doing carnivore, I had such an amazing turnaround. Stopped snoring, arthritis went away, depression, anxiety. Like it can't get any better than this. But I just recently hit 1 year, and it's better now than it's ever been. It's just everyone keeps saying it. It's hard to believe, but it gets better and better. Yeah. So I'm from Wisconsin. Like I said, I've been doing a proper human diet now for a year. I'm a YouTuber. I've been doing YouTube videos for 9 years now, mostly about our homestead. You might be able to see it in the background, maybe not. There's some goats walking around behind me right now. They were knocking on the window there a second ago, but we've got goats and chickens and been doing YouTube videos about that for 8 or 9 years. And then I found the proper human diet. At my heaviest, I was 100 pounds heavier than I am right now. I lost some of that through keto, but most of it through carnivore, the really hard way through carnivore. And yeah, after I found the proper human diet, I was able to get off medication for depression and anxiety and sleep issues. I was diagnosed with IBS. I was diagnosed with arthritis in my toe. A couple doctors said it was gout, and then they said it was misdiagnosed as gout. Um, I had all sorts of issues. I had a mini stroke about 5 years ago, and I was on just a ton of medication. And I kept going back to the doctor for more and more help, and they would just give me more medication, and it never seemed to fix anything. And then I found the proper human diet about a year ago on YouTube. I was watching a video, and I saw Dante Ferrigno from Ferrigno Freedom telling his story. And I thought he was a complete psychopath. I'm like, how can you just eat meat and only eat meat? That's nuts. And he happened to just be, I caught one of his videos from like 2 years prior, and he was like just starting. And then I realized the video was 2 years older. So kind of cynically, I'm like, just talking to my wife, I'm like, let's fast forward to present time because there's no way this guy's still eating meat. And I did that, and you could hardly recognize him. Looked like a completely new human. Uh, Lost all of his weight, but overcame stomach issues, IBS, mood. His mood was so much better, and he was happier. And that's how I found carnivore. And then I watched a bunch of Dr. Berry videos, and then I jumped into it, and never looking back since. I've started realizing so many things I had wrong before, so many things I was doing wrong. And now my daughters and my wife, I have triplets plus one here at home, and my girls are all doing it now too, and my wife is as well. She started several months ago, and she had some trouble, and she kind of went back to keto, but she's back to carnivore now. So the whole family's carnivore. And sorry, I'm kind of rambling. We're doing the documentary too. So I think it was around day 67 on carnivore. I decided, why isn't there a documentary about this? This has changed my life forever. I was on every SSRI and antidepressant for most of my adult life, and my depression had completely gone away just from eating a proper human diet, eating natural foods humans were intended to eat. And then I started doing more research. I'm like, this isn't unique to me. Like tons of people are doing carnivore diet or strict ketogenic diet, and they're overcoming depression, anxiety, type 2 diabetes, fertility issues. People are doing it for cancer. I'm like, we did a documentary on this. I'm like, Dr. Barry, all these guys are doing great on YouTube, but there's so many people. For me, I'm like, I'm a weirdo on YouTube. Laura's a weirdo. We're a lot of weirdos. Like, I guess more and more people are using YouTube, but there's a ton of people that they never touch YouTube, and they're on Netflix or they're
Yep.
on these streaming services. So I'm
Yeah.
like, we got to do a documentary. And I decided I wanted to do a documentary. Eventually, we named it Healing Humanity. where we're going to follow around real individuals over the course of a year doing a proper human diet to overcome obesity, diabetes, fertility issues, heart disease, all sorts of things, and just tell the truth. Good or bad, whatever happens, just put those examples out there. We're not doing a documentary that says you should eat like I'm eating. We're just saying, here's the examples of what's working for people, and maybe you want to get inspired by this and do something with it or not. So that's kind of the long story long version of it.
That's okay. So, do you feel like when you initially decided to transition into carnivore, were you kind of at a low spot? Do you feel like I only have like, what is my other option here? Like you've kind of hit that. What else do I have?
It's a great question. Yes. I I get a little goosebumps thinking about it because having just hit my 1 year, I started thinking, what if I never did this? Where would I be right now 1 year later? I'm honestly, this isn't me being dramatic. I might not even be here. My depression was so bad. I was suicidally depressed. I was on every antidepressant. People say to me now, they're like, you're so inspirational, you're so cheery, and you're so excited about carnivore. And I really believe the reason is because I was so hopeless and desperate before. It's like, how could I not be excited? I feel like I was in a dungeon or a prison most of my adult life, and now I finally have freedom. So, of course, I'm excited about it. And I want to tell all the other prisoners, like, it's right here. It's like so simple. Just do this. So, yeah, I was very, very desperate. And it wasn't the depression and anxiety were the worst for me, but that compounded into sleep issues, which compounded into insomnia, which 5 years ago, I had a TIA mini stroke, which may have resulted just due to my lack of sleep. Like there's so many combinations that go into it, but I definitely didn't help being having insomnia and sometimes not sleeping at all or sleeping like an hour every single night, doing that for months and then into years. But
Sure.
right before I started carnivore too, it was I was diagnosed with IBS, so my stomach was always gurgling and bubbling, so that was really annoying. I suffered from that for many years. And then this arthritis. I've always had lower back pain, but I had arthritis so bad in my foot. I was using a mobility scooter. Anytime we'd go to a big grocery store, I'd get in the mobility scooter. I could barely put any pressure down on my foot. They wanted to do surgery on it, and that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. That was the like, what else could be wrong? I had the mini stroke, depression, anxiety, sleep, IBS. I lost my appendix. I lost my gallbladder. I've had multiple surgeries, so many stomach issues over the years. But yeah, I was legitimately desperate for anything at that point.
How old were you when you started to transition into carnivore? Because you look pretty young.
Uh, I'm 43 now. I was 42 then. But I found the keto diet maybe 10 years ago. And that
Yeah.
helped. That was the only thing in my life that ever helped the depression. I know antidepressants, SSRIs, maybe they help some people. I'm not sure. They never helped me at all. And when I did keto about 10, 15 years ago, that helped the depression a little bit where it was noticeable. I'm like, this is working, but I could never sustain it. And I wasn't getting enough
Yeah.
fat. And there was too much unnatural processed seed oils. And then all the keto products started coming out and those messed me up. So,
Yeah, I did. I started keto before it was even called keto in 1991 when I was well over 300 pounds. I was 20. And the first 26 years were amazing. Everything was good, but I did whole foods. Like I
yeah.
had a garden, I shoot my own deer, we fish, we do everything like that. My daughter has chickens and stuff. But then that last 2 years, the big keto craze came and it was like, "Oh, Quest bars are keto and this is keto." And when I started adding all the fake sugars and stuff like that, wow, that hit me pretty hard because I will be 53 next month.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it'll be many, many decades that I have not put sugar or anything like that in my body, but I did some of those fake sweeteners. I even grew stevia. Um, and I'm not saying it's the worst thing, but in my body, my brain still saw it as sugar, and my body didn't know what to do with it. And I got cystic acne at 50. I had horrible joint pain, 49. Um, and so I watched, actually, it was Sean Baker. I watched him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I
Yeah.
was like, this makes perfect sense. My dad was three quarters Cherokee Indian, and I was like, he didn't chase around broccoli, like, their family, they didn't chase them around, they followed the buffalo,
Yes.
and I was like, they might eat the occasional berry, but I was like, this is stupid. And I hated vegetables. There's like one vegetable that I don't even miss any of them, but there's one that I was like, if I was starving to death, I would eat that.
Right.
But, I'm kind of like you. I'm not a homesteader necessarily, but I'm a prepper. So I have like I cold pack deer meat and beef and butter and all kinds of stuff.
Nice.
So I'm prepared if
Right.
anything like that happens. But I do have regular human food, I call it, for the other normies, and then I'll barter if I have to. So,
Right.
but yeah, so we do have a question from Darth, and he wants to know kind of what kind of reactions do we get from people when we're wearing these shirts? Because my shirt's a little lower than his, but
Yay.
I've got the same one.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. For anyone watching, just so you know, the
Yeah.
shirts too, every single penny we get from the shirts goes 100% towards the documentary. We're not trying to make money off of it. But to answer, what was the question here? What are some common reactions in person when folks read your Healing Humanity shirts? Thinking about getting one
Yes.
soon as I've recently dropped the t-shirt size. Well, for me, I usually get sort of a weird, confused look where they're thinking about asking more about it. Sometimes they do. I have another shirt. I was actually wearing it yesterday that just says, I eat only meat. Ask me why. And that one, I get a lot of questions on that one. So I have had people ask me, and I love talking about it. What about you, Laura? Have you had anyone ask you?
Oh yeah. So I was actually wearing the one from your site that was I eat only meat, ask me why. And the first time I went over to the butcher's to, pick up extra ribeye fat. And when I say extra, I'm talking like 20 pounds at a time. And I do that almost weekly. And he was like, okay, I've got to ask you. Your shirt says ask you. So why? So I just said, and I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. So I was like, okay, how much do you want to go into this? And I
Yeah,
just
they set you up.
word vomit on him. And he was like, oh, and I said, you should be happy. You work behind a meat counter. Look at what you're going
Right?
to sell. And they do grass fed, grass finished at their store. So that's perfect. And it's a farmer I know that I went to high school with that actually they get the majority of their beef from. But yeah, I've had a few people out at restaurants. We don't go out to eat very much because I don't want their junk on my steak,
Yeah.
and you never know what they're putting on. So once in a while, we'll go out, and I always wear one of my carnivore shirts. I have probably 15 of the different ones, and they're always like, "Oh," I had one lady. She says, "Oh, you're one of those people?" And I was like, "Oh, one of what people?" She literally thought that I ate humans.
Oh my goodness.
I
Wow.
said, "No, no, no, dear. I'm not a cannibal. I'm a carnivore."
Right.
And so we had a little educational thing. So that's kind of what we've done. So I do like the idea, for one, of getting these kind of shirts. For one, from your site to help with making the documentary. That is the whole reason that I bought those when I did. Same with I've got
Oh,
Johnny's, I've got, cutting boards and stuff like that, because we need to get that information out there. Like you said, we're on YouTube talking about it. I'm a home health nurse. Every one of my patients is either keto, ketovore, or carnivore at this point, and they're all getting super healthy. So we can hit a lot of people, but like you say, we need to hit bigger amounts of people so that they at least have that option, kind of like Jeff DeProsperous, you
yes.
know,
Yes.
you need to be able to have this as an option. It doesn't mean it's right for every single person. My husband loves vegetables, they love him. So be it.
Right.
I'm fine with that. So, but I do like the idea of getting that information out there, and you have to get it out there so that they see it. So,
Right. I
when
had oh sorry,
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I had one memorable experience when we went to film Bill Not for the documentary. Some people might have seen this, but if others maybe didn't, my daughter Emma and I went to film Bill for the Healing Humanity documentary, and the shuttle bus driver, uh, I had a
Yeah.
shirt on. I eat only meat. Asked me why, and we had a conversation for like 20 minutes, and it was so cool because he was genuinely interested, and you could tell he was kind of hopeless. He had lost his father to type 2 diabetes just recently, and he knew some of it, but he just didn't know. It's just like an education thing. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that whole thing of just have this as a tool in your toolbox. There's so many people out there that are hopeless for depression, anxiety, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and they just don't know, just to have it as a tool in their toolbox. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun conversation starter too sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I've had patients with congestive heart failure, kidney disease, the stage just where they're getting ready to go to dialysis. And I'm like, hey, I can't tell you to do this, but this is something that you could try if you want to try it and see. And we have one who has actually reversed back to CKD2, and is no longer being fitted for a port so that they can go in and do dialysis. And I'm like, there you
Wow.
go. And I do
Wow.
have one endocrinologist who works with the diabetics in a town close to me. Um, he's not super mad at me, but he did call and voiced his concern. Two of his patients that I had converted to ketovore, and are no longer diabetic, and so they can't go see him because he's a specialty doctor. And if you don't have that diagnosis, then you can no longer be seen by these specialty doctors. So he wasn't happy that he lost two patients, and I said, you should be extremely happy. Both of these people are going to live so much longer. So I'm
Right.
still going to do it. And I don't care what they say. Like, I'm working within my scope of practice as a nurse to work with them on nutrition. Nowhere in that guideline does it say what the nutrition has to be. It's just what I want to go over with them. So, when you transitioned to carnivore, did you come were you doing keto-ish at that time, or had you kind of went back to standard American diet?
I did keto on and off for years, literally like 10 years. And so when I started carnivore, I think I was doing keto maybe a month prior, and I just completely fallen off the wagon. And then there were some like birthday parties, and it almost got to, I don't want to say an eating disorder, but where I'd be like, oh, I'm going to start this next keto in a week from now, or I'm going to start on Saturday. And then I would just eat a bunch of junk food. So I was pretty rough going into carnivore, although I had done keto like a couple weeks prior, but was at kind of a low point in terms of eating a lot of junk food, and then trying to say justify eating more, because I did that so many times over these. One of the biggest mistakes I made on keto was I did it really strict for a long time, very strict, just like you did, and I had really good success. Whole single foods. Then I started getting the keto snacks, and that messed me up. Then I would do pretty strict keto, and then I would say, "Oh, on Saturday I'm going to have a cheat day," and it was so dumb. And I did it for a long time, and I would end up kind of binging because I'd be like, "This is it. This is the last chance. Like, better have pizza. Better have ice cream. Better have this." And then the cheat day would end like on a Saturday. I'd be like, let's just do it for the weekend." And then it would be, "Well, let's just do it till the end of the month." And then it was always some excuse. So, but yeah, I did keto on and off for years, but I think just prior to carnivore, I think I'd done keto so long that it was easier for me to get into ketosis than maybe someone coming from the standard American diet. But yeah,
Yeah,
just prior, I was
I
eating pretty
agree.
junky.
So, since you've been doing this for a while and a lot of people are on your platform, have you had this same thing? I've had people that kind of fall off the carnivore wagon, maybe not quite all the way back to where they were, but it seems like the people I kind of counsel on my website that they're like, it was easier for me to come back to carnivore. It wasn't so hard for them. Do you have that same thing? Do you hear that?
I do, yeah. I get that question a lot too. What do I do? I messed up so bad. How do I get back into it? And my advice is get back into it. Don't wait. Someone was like, "Should I eat fruit for a little while and then do it?" I'm like, I, I'm
No.
not a doctor, but I wouldn't do that. I would just jump right back into it. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's easier that way. I think part of the interesting thing with carnivore is kind of education for people. I get a lot of people that are just completely, they've never even heard of it. Like your person that said, "Are you
Right.
eating other humans? What is this kind of thing?" They're just
Yeah.
clueless, but they don't understand ketosis and how that works. And a lot of people, I think, come into carnivore from the Weight Watchers mindset of, "Oh, I ate only meat for 5 days. Now I did so good, I could have a birthday cake." And I'm like, that will kick you
Right.
out of ketosis. It could take you maybe a week to get back into it, and it's not the same as the standard American diet, or you did good for a couple days. So I get a lot
Yeah.
of those as well.
Yeah. How long do you feel like it took and I know this is hard because I've been doing it almost 5 years to remember these details because I have to go back and look at my notes, like, when did my acne go away? When did my depression go away? When did this go away? But do you remember how quickly you started noticing positive changes, like in depression, sleep, I think didn't you have a CPAP machine?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened. I always feel bad talking about this a little bit because it happened really quick for me. And I always tell people
Mm,
everyone's different. So don't get upset if
sure.
it doesn't happen as fast for you. I think it's a lot easier for men than women. Depending on the age, hormones, there's like so many
Yeah.
genetics, there's probably so many things that go into it. But this is the craziest thing. And people think I'm nuts when I say this, but it's the truth. I stopped snoring the first night on carnivore. It's
Wow.
crazy, but I heard Dr. Jordan Peterson, he stopped snoring the first week on
Mhm.
carnivore. I get so many comments on my channel. I've heard a bunch of other people say that. And like I said, I was kind of doing keto before, so maybe that played into it. Maybe I didn't eat a bunch of inflammatory food, but that was the craziest thing for me because it was contentious with my wife. Like I was snoring so loud for so long, and she'd hear me stop breathing throughout the night, so she was always aware of kind of my sleeping patterns. But um,
Yeah.
I went to so many sleep studies and I was on a CPAP machine for so many years. And my sleep doctor was a really nice guy, but he never once mentioned anything about nutrition or inflammation. It was just, Kerry, you're about 80 pounds too heavy right now. You got to lose that weight. Your neck is big. That's why you're snoring.
Mhm.
But I have heard from so many people, Dr. Jordan Peterson too, first week they
Yeah.
stopped snoring. And it's like, that's the biggest thing that happened for me quickly on carnivore was the inflammation going down. So I believe I was snoring due to inflammation. That went away right away. And then I think within the first week or 10 days, this lower back pain I had since like high school,
Yeah.
where Laura, I was just like, I must have injured myself in high school. This is a lifelong thing. I'm always going to have this lower back pain. That went away
Mm.
within like 10 days or 2 weeks or something. I'm like, what? I thought that was like a disc issue or something like that.
Right.
Um, the depression and anxiety took a little bit longer, but within 30 days, it was totally noticeable. I get that question a lot. How long on the depression and anxiety? I talked to so many other carnivores, so I kind of try to keep tabs on it. My buddy
Mhm.
Todd Bachnis, the carnivore cure, he said it was about three
Yeah.
weeks for him, and he suffered depression, suicidal depression, his entire life.
Wow.
He's angry about it too. He's like, this is nuts. Like 3 weeks, I was on all this medication my whole life. Why didn't someone tell me about this earlier? But I've heard from other people like 60 days. So like I said, it's different for everybody. But I always tell people give it 60 days. I used to say
Yeah.
30 days, but try for 60
I
days.
I I say the same thing. I'm always like 60, 90 days, like you can do anything if, for that amount of time. It's not that hard. No, the sad thing about the depression, anxiety, even the hormone issues that we have, from this low fat lifestyle, these statins and all the other stuff, which I could speak on statins for 2 hours. Um, it's sad because if people go back and look in history in the 20s and 30s, they were using keto, high fat diets with these children with epilepsy. I mean, I learned about it in nursing school.
Yeah.
Um, and so they knew that, but you don't make money off of that.
Right.
And
And we're the
you don't
weird ones too when we talk about it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that the whole keto thing makes me so mad now too. I'm so fortunate to get to talk to some of these good doctors for the documentary. One of them being Professor Seafried on the cancer front,
yes.
and he's like even suggesting a ketogenic diet. They're telling him that's dangerous. I'm like, what? They could go get chemotherapy and radiate themselves. That's fine.
Yeah.
But doing a ketogenic diet, like you said, they've been treating that for epilepsy forever. I've got some good friends of mine, neighbors that are Amish, and I told them about what I'm doing, carnivore, and I said it's like keto. Do you know what keto is? And they're like, yeah, we know what keto is. We've been treating people
Mhm.
in our community with
Community.
keto diets for
Mhm.
forever. They're like, I got a
Yeah.
cousin that had seizures, and they're totally ketogenic. It's like none of this
Yep.
is new stuff. But when people
Yeah.
think that keto is like doing carnivore, I get it that some people would think that's extreme, but I still get people now that think keto is dangerous or weird. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
you're eating salad and vegetables and whole foods if you're doing it right. I mean, I guess there could be an argument if you start eating all the keto stuff, but they're not even talking about that and they're
Yeah.
scared of keto. I'm like, Man, are things so backwards, so backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. My doctor that I have, she's vegan of 25 years. And she has all the conditions that come with that lifestyle. She's broken her wrists, both wrists at the same time, twice now. And she's 48, going to be 49 this year. So she's younger than me, like all the doctors are becoming. You get older and all your doctors get super young. But she, we were going over my labs last year and she literally threw them down on the thing and she goes, "How are all your vitamins and mineral levels and everything looks perfect? How?" And I said, "Well, do you have time? I mean, it's an hour appointment." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Well," I said, "I eat the ruminant animal, they eat the grass, their stomachs break it all down, they convert it into the vitamins, it gets stored in their muscle. I eat the muscle. I bypass having to chew on that green crap because I'm not going to do it." And I said, "Let me guess, you're deficient in A, E, D, K, and B12." And she goes, "How do you know that?" And I said, "Your hair's breaking off at all these different levels. You're this big around. You fractured your wrists 2 times now, both of them at the same time, not from a large fall. And I mean, I said, your thyroid looks funny. You could see it. And it just, and I said, so that's just my guess." And I said, by the time I left there, I said, "Can you at least do some eggs? Like, get some egg yolks into you, get some fat, some cholesterol." And I went through the whole cholesterol thing because, I'm medically trained and biology and all that too. So I was like, okay, let's go over it. And I went through all the things that she would understand. I was like, the cell membranes, the myelin sheath around your nerves, your brain is 65% fat, the liver produces 85. I mean, I threw it all out. And she was like, she was taking it in, but she was like, "Dang." And I was like, "You can show me something different." And I brought studies down on the cholesterol from years ago where they knew the truth,
Mm.
but told us a lie. And she was like, "Well, I wasn't even going to bring up cholesterol medicine." I said, "Yeah, it's hard to do when you have a cardiac calcium score of 0." And she was like, "Oh, wow." So we ended up spending my hour talking about her labs and her
Wow,
health. I got my money back. They sent me a check this last December. Yeah, on my
nice.
appointment. I know. I was like, first of all, it was a hospital system I used to work for that I would never work for because they're corporate again. And I was like, okay, I got to check back. What is going on? And it didn't say exactly why or the date. So I called them and they said, yeah, she said no charge for that appointment. And I was like, okay, perfect. So
Wow, that is so
I was
cool.
happy with that.
You should
Yeah,
have
so
got a
hopefully
you
she'll
should have got a
eat
doctor's
okay.
wage
Yeah, wouldn't
paycheck.
that be nice?
I
Yeah.
isn't that
So
interesting though, Laura? Because that's one thing I've been thinking about more and more. I went to so many doctors with total faith. One of the biggest things I've
yeah,
realized being carnivore now for 1 year is nobody has anything figured out in this world. That's like I used to think doctors, yeah, they know their stuff. They went to school for 8 years, like scientists, teachers. I mean, some people, but for the most part, they're clueless. Like you educated your doctor for an hour, like I would have thought my doctor going to them would know some of those things. Now I thought, like, of course they
yeah,
didn't have any clue, but I had it
yeah.
so backwards before.
Well, and the weird thing is so like in 1991, the whole reason I did keto, which wasn't called keto then, was because my doctor wanted to throw me on statin. It was fairly new. It came out in 87 was when Lipitor was released. This was in 91. And I was 20 and I looked at him and I said, "Well, how long do I have to take this?" And he said, "Forever." And I was like, "Oh, hell no, I'm not living
Mm,
out of a pill bottle." And I went to an old library in my hometown and I took all the medical journals I could find, and they had them from like 1850 up through about 1910. Every one of those talked about nutrition. But if you, and you've been in this, when Carnegie and all those Rockefeller and family got involved in the medical system, that stuff went away and they're
yep,
not taught the nutrition. And unfortunately, they all have to follow this standard of care if they're in a corporate. So if you can find a doctor that's standalone, like has his own clinic and he's not underneath a hospital system, he can use his brain to be like, hey, let's try this, or he's going to be more open to that stuff. If they're under that standard of care, they're not going to do it. And
right.
it's too bad. But I also tell those doctors, that's your fault. You sold out and you stayed working for the corporate. I mean, I could be making a lot more money than I do per hour if I'd have stayed down there, but I'm not for sale.
Right.
So I chose a different route. So have you been able to find a doctor that you guys can see that is kind of on board with how you do things? Not that I care if they're on board, but you know what I mean.
Right. Not yet. Not as of yet. It's the craziest thing too, because I was literally going to the doctor probably at least once a month prior to this. I haven't been to the doctor in
Yeah.
a year. I did have some blood work done around month 6. Everything looked great. I was supposed to go back into my cardiologist because, as I mentioned earlier, I had a mini stroke 5 years ago. After I had the mini stroke, they did a whole bunch of tests and they determined I have congestive heart failure. I have a low ejection fraction. And I used to, prior to carnivore, every time I'd stand up, I'd get dizzy. I was always fatigued, like always so tired. And it was like a symptom of the congestive heart failure. I don't have that anymore. So I feel like it's gone away.
Mhm.
Long story short,
And it can.
yeah, at the end of this year, at the end of last year, I was supposed to go in and get my ejection fraction tested again. I just wanted to see if my heart failure had changed. I don't, something's different. And oh, I've also had an irregular heartbeat my whole life, and it's gone. Like I've had it since
Yep.
birth. I've like every couple of years I had to wear a heart monitor because of this thing, and it's gone. My my wife noticed it when we were watching a movie, and I went to Walgreens. I bought a stethoscope. I'm like, it's gone. It's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
so, anyways, I was supposed to go in at the end of the year, and my wife and I were self-employed, so we pay a ton of money for insurance and deductibles. I
Yeah.
went in, and they were like, "Oh no, we tried to call you. The cardiologist, he travels from Madison. He's like, he's not in today. He can get you January 2nd." I'm like, "That's a new year. That's a new deductible that I got to pay out of pocket. It's going to be
Yeah.
thousands of dollars." So now we're scrambling around to like, I want to do it so bad just to see, but I have no reason to go to the doctor otherwise. I've never felt
Yeah.
healthier in my entire life. So the one time I'm going to the doctor is going to cost me probably like $5,000 out of pocket or something,
Yeah.
all just so I
Yeah.
can see whether or not my ejection fraction changed, which I'm almost positive it has. But I don't know. Have you heard
Sure.
that, Laura? I heard the heart
I have.
performs. Have you?
Yes. Yeah. So basically, even just what I know from chemistry, biology, micro, all of that is the body can heal itself if it is in like a homeostasis.
Mm,
It's in the perfect state it needs to be. It will repair itself. We were made to repair. It's just that everybody puts the food in that blocks it. We're breathing in these horrible chemicals and everything else that's out here, and then we're taking medicines to block our body response. So when I go in and see a patient with high blood pressure, I'm like, oh, well, what's causing it? Do you have kidney trouble? Do you have cardiac calcium built up? Well, I don't know. And I'm like, "Oh, so you're okay with them just treating the symptoms?" "Well,
mm,
what do you mean?" I said, "Well, this is not fixing your high blood pressure. We're just dilating your blood vessels." But one of the diabetic guys that, hey, when I first got him, he already had a right lower leg amputation, but he also had congestive heart failure. I think his ejection fraction was only 32%, and they
mm,
like you to be around 60.
right.
um, his diabetic numbers, his hemoglobin A1C was 10.9. In 6 months of doing ketovore, his ejection fraction was 58% when I left, when I
Wow.
discharged him. Yep. What was he? Oh, and then his hemoglobin A1C was 5.6. So he was no longer diabetic. No more insulin, no more monitor, no more metformin. And he was able to save the rest of his leg because I said, this doesn't get better. It's only going to creep up and they're going to keep taking more body parts off. And he was a truck driver. And
Huh.
I said, you can't get a CDL if you have above the knee amputation and you have a prosthetic, but you can if it's just the lower leg because your knee still works. And so I was like, you've got to change something. And the first 2 weeks, he didn't listen until he started to not heal where they had done that amputation. And then he come back from the hospital and he goes, okay, what do I got to do? And I was like, okay, here we go.
Mm,
So
wow.
yes, and when you see people that are almost dialysis bound come back to where they're not, and you see blood pressure. I mean, I literally admitted a patient that's 97 years old yesterday to home health, and she's great. She's almost carnivore anyway. I'm looking at her medicines, and she's got one medicine that is to bring your blood pressure up, like you have hypotension. And then she had two other medicines that were for high blood pressure. And I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Wow.
But,
Jeez.
even with her, I said, you need to meet with your doctor. And I talked with the family, and I was like, here's the questions I would ask. And I wrote them down, and I said, he's going to look at you weird. He may not be happy with the questions. You may need a different doctor at some point, but you should not be taking these medicines together. That makes no sense.
Right. Wow.
You know,
Hey, quick question. Sorry, this is kind of a personal one, but since you're in the healthcare, I want to go do this. Get my ejection fraction was in the low 40s. It was enough to be
okay,
classified as congestive heart failure. I want to go get
right.
it tested. I'm going to have to pay out of pocket. And I'm talking to my wife. I know what they're going to do. They're going to be like, no, you got to go talk to your primary first. And then they got to do a referral. And then is there any way, like with the ejection fraction or testing that, where I could just give me this? I know you can go to places and
Yeah,
get your own blood work and stuff like that. Or is there any
I know.
suggestions you have?
I wish there was. Right now, the way the healthcare, sick care is usually what I call it system is set up. It's ran by the insurance companies, it's ran by Medicare. And unfortunately, they want to make sure each person along that track gets a payment.
Yeah.
So that's why they make you play that game. I would say if I were you, and I know you want to see what your rejection fraction is, I would be more apt for you to go get a cardiac calcium score,
That
and I
was
don't know
my
if you've
second
done
one.
that?
I haven't, but I
Okay,
want to.
yes, and that is usually out of pocket, insurance won't cover it, but when I've had mine done, I've had it done twice, it's 75 bucks.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
CT, it was $75, and I was mad. 2 reasons I was mad. First of all, I'm an old cardiac nurse, so I already knew that it's calcium that's in there, it's not a buildup of plaque, it's not cholesterol there's a little in there from damage, it's gonna go there to heal it, but then it's calcium because as blood vessels get damaged, they turn into almost like bone sites, and then they draw calcium, minerals, and all the rest of it in there. So that's what it is. It looks like chalk.
Mm,
Because I've been in open heart, all the things, so I've seen it. So I already knew that. But when I went to get this CT scan, of course I knew them. I worked there, and I was like, so I'm getting a cardiac calcium score done today. She goes, yeah. And I said, well, if it's cholesterol that they think's blocking everything, how come it's not called a cardiac cholesterol scoring? And
right.
she goes, because we're looking for calcium. And I said, yes, we are. And that's what I teach people. And then the other thing I said is, this only costs $75. And I said, is that for employees? And she said, no. If somebody off the street has an order for one, we'd do it for. And I said, but if I get in a car accident out front of this hospital and come in for a CT, what's that cost? And she goes, oh, 7 to 10 grand. And I was like, see, this is so backwards, so
Right.
backwards.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so but that's what I would get, and I did have one previous to starting carnivore, because my dad died at 42 of heart disease, and
Mm,
all of my family has died of one massive heart attack, and they're done, 40, 42.
mm.
So, I went ahead and got one, and I was 360 or 380, I can't remember exactly, and then after being carnivore for a year and a half, my vegan doctor was freaking out, and I was like, "Fine, let's do it," and so I did it again, and it was 0.
Wow.
So that is also reversible. I also do take a vitamin called K2D3, which has been shown to help pull calcium out of the blood vessels and get it out into the bone matrix and helps the vitamin D then get it into the bones, which I recommend for anybody that has osteoporosis, arthritis, where they see the calcifications that are getting into the joints. So, yeah, I always tell people I'm not a doctor, but if you want to know what I'm taking, this is what I take, you know?
Right.
Um, and I wish, and I do think, with some of the docs like Hampton and Chafee and Barry and Baker and all of them, Weiderman's, I think the message is getting out there. I think they're seeing that. Um, but I think we need more of those messages out there. But I would just wish more of these doctors would come on. But until the insurance companies and big media can find ways to make money off of it, they're not going to push it just like they did with keto. I mean, I did keto all those years, and then all at once it became a keto craze. And then they were like, oh, let's put out all these products because
Right.
they could make money, you know?
My thing is that I'm really worried about, like, the whole reason for the documentary was there's so many people that are hopeless with depression, anxiety, and then when you look at um, obesity rates, or people that are overweight, was it like 7 out of 10 people are overweight adults right now?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
the biggest thing though for this was children in this next generation. My wife and I have triplets plus one. The triplets are 16 right now. Luckily, they're all doing carnivore with me now, which is just amazing. I'm so thankful for that. It
Yes.
took a long time to happen, but the whole family sitting down eating. But like when I see them prior to this, or their peers and their friends, the stuff they're eating now is insane. Like, and I was in such horrible condition and I ate bad. I kind of use this analogy. I ate processed foods. This generation is eating ultra processed foods. Like, they're all walking around with the Starbucks cups and they're just completely full of sugar. And it
Yeah.
just seems like there's so much more ultra processed stuff now than there was. Like, I ate really bad and I suffered so bad. I have this worried about this next generation of kids. You're seeing like cancer rates are just going through the roof on younger and younger people and things like that. I just have this
Oh,
feeling in the
absolutely.
next
Yeah.
decade or
The
so, it's going to
other,
be like, what is going on here?
yeah, the other thing that we're seeing in, and it's not just in my area because I have friends that live all over, is that these children are getting this fatty liver disease before the age of 12 now. That used to be an alcoholic's disease. We
Mm,
didn't see that in people, and now we're seeing it in these young children. The other thing is, it used to be when you talked about diabetes, there was type 1, which you're born with your pancreas not working properly. And so when you saw people get diabetes that wasn't type 1 and it was called type 2, that was actually called adult onset diabetes because they were adults. And now we're getting that at 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age. And unfortunately, our healthcare system is set up so ass backwards that it is the sicker you are, the more money they make. So, what incentive do most of them have to get you better?
right.
They just don't, you know.
It's all
Um,
backwards.
it is. It's very maddening. And it was very hard. Like when I went through nursing school, I was already keto for a long, long time because I was a factory worker. I built semis, worked in a food factory before I went into nursing. And when I was sitting there and they're spewing this stuff in nursing class, I was just like, just regurgitate what they want you to say. Just
Mm,
don't, you know the truth. And when you get out, you will educate your patients correctly. And I just hold to that. I'm like, it's like, and I think I've heard you say this before. I have yet to meet a unnice carnivore.
right. Yeah, it's true. I have yet. It's
Yeah.
crazy. We need more healthcare professionals like you, Laura. Seriously. I
Yeah.
hope it starts to happen. What you were saying earlier is so true too. It's so clear now. I can't believe how confused and messed up I was before, but some of the stuff is just common sense stuff. Like,
It
what they
is.
just had this study come out. I don't know if you saw this one, with where intermittent fasting is dangerous now.
I
What?
know. I should be
What?
dead.
Right? Like, what have humans done since this? I always go back to that analogy. You kind of mentioned it earlier. What have humans done
Yeah.
since the start of time? We were constantly snacking and eating every 2 hours. No, you'd go hunt a big
No.
animal out there and you'd fast for a while. It's just
Yeah, well,
common
and first of
sense.
all, you weren't going to get your kill every single time.
Right.
Even when I go deer hunting, I might get 6 deer in a season, I might get 2. And so in between those times, they're not gonna sit around. Like I said, they didn't have broccoli and gardens and corn and soybean crap. They didn't have that stuff.
Right.
That has all been brought here and then it's all been genetically modified. Um, so yeah, and even I've had people go, "Well, I don't want to do carnivore." And I said, "You don't have to do I'm not telling you you have to do carnivore. I'm telling you eat as clean as you possibly can, try to do your single ingredient foods, grow it yourself. Like anything we grow is heirloom seeds. It
Yeah.
has not been tainted. We don't spray any chemicals on it. I don't eat it because it doesn't like me, and I don't like them, and I'm perfectly happy with that,
Right.
but I tell people to do that, and then I said, "See how you feel. If you still have aches and pains, if you still have joint swelling, brain fog." That's the other thing. I don't have brain fog anymore, and I had that horrible. And yeah, so so I tell people, then try to do the carnivore. Do it for 60 to 90 days and see how you do. So I did that for almost 4 years. And then I wanted to do lion because I was still kind of nasally, kind of like Adam talks about having histamine. And so I was like, cut out the egg whites. And then I was like, I don't really care about any of the egg or chicken or any. So I've been lion for over a year now. And I have no want to ever eat anything other than beef, lamb, deer, bison. I haven't tried camel or whatever else is on that ruminant list,
Right.
but kangaroo, or somebody said kangaroo, and I was like, I don't know if I could eat. I suppose if I'm hungry,
Right.
but I just tell people to try to do that. And I think one of the important things that I found out during fasting is you realize and get so connected with your body and how it works that if you'd eat something, you're like, oh, yes, I ate that one thing and that's what did it to me. So I just tell people to do that. And I also start people out where I'm like, you need to write down what is your why. Why are you wanting to do this? And I don't care if it's because you just want to drop 20, 30 pounds, if it's because you have some of these diseases we talked about that we've seen people reverse or reversed ourselves, but write it down, because if it's not a strong enough why, you're not going to stick with it,
Right.
because peer pressure will drive you insane if you care. I don't care. I didn't care back in 1991. I quit the day before Thanksgiving, everything white.
Hmm.
And they gave me crap that whole day on Thanksgiving. And I was like, I wanted a smaller plate. I just ate the meats. I think I ate some broccoli, and I was like, I'm good. I don't want to be miserable. So that's kind of how I did it. You said your family is doing carnivore. Wasn't your mom and your stepdad doing it?
Yep, they're both still carnivore too. My mom, my stepdad, and both of my sisters as
Sister.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
Perfect.
crazy.
Perfect. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I've watched a lot of like you and Emma, and I love Bill Knott. I love Bill Knott. I love Jeff. I love Russ from Homesick Buckeye. Any of the people, he cracks me up. That reverend thing he does, I just love
He,
him.
he's the best.
Um, he is. So the other thing is, can you go over a little bit more about like the documentary, like how you guys are raising funds? I did go ahead and I went on your site and found the GoFundMe thing for that. Can you kind of go over that just a little bit and explain what that'll help and how you
Yeah,
guys do it?
absolutely. One really interesting thing with our documentary that I'm really proud about is I didn't say let's do a documentary because I want to make a living doing this. I'm still working my own business and my own job to pay all the expenses I put. So every penny we're making that people donate to our GoFundMe goes 100% towards the documentary. If people become a member on my channel, if they buy the shirts, it all goes towards it. Um, I, One thing I'm really proud of is our entire documentary up until this point is entirely crowdfunded, which is kind of rare. Like you guys have probably seen some of the junk on Netflix with the vegan stuff,
Oh,
where you look at it and you get to the
yeah.
end and it's literally sponsored by a company, Impossible Burger, Beyond Meats, or one of these
Yeah.
companies. It,
And Pfizer.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Most documentaries, when you look at it, they have some sort of bias because of that reason. Ours is, but up until this point, it's completely crowdfunded, which I'm really excited about. I keep telling people too, it's our documentary. It's not my documentary, and it's just a bunch of individual stories. I'm just basically trying to let people tell their stories and document their stories. So yeah, we're following people around for 1 year. We've already filmed Bill Knott. We filmed Maggie, who's the 82-year-old
Yes.
carnivore. It's incredible. We filmed Jeff
Yeah.
DeProsperous out in Canada. We filmed
Yep.
Dr. Hampton in Chicago. When we filmed Dr. Barry, that was the most recent one. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, if people are interested in donating, um, our goal is to get the documentary. Initially, it was just let's get it on a big streaming service so we can get outside the sphere of just YouTube. Um,
Right.
but now our goal is actually bigger. We're trying to partner with Angel Studios and get the documentary on a big
Yes.
screen, which
Oh,
A lot
that'd
of
be
people are
great.
like, oh, that's tough to do. But Angel Studios just had a major documentary on big screens all over the planet, in movie theaters all over the planet.
Yes.
So that is our goal:
Yep.
get on the big screen and then get it on Netflix. In any case, my goal is, it's like, it's become sort of my passion or my purpose in life. I'm like, I'm not stopping until we reach millions of people with this. So it's probably going to be sort of a hybrid approach. But we are still raising more funds because it's incredibly expensive to film a documentary to the quality needed to get it on the big screen. And we're
Yeah.
kind of shoestringing it. My good friend Adam is helped me so much with stuff. He came with me to film Maggie and Jeff DeProsperous, and we just went to film Dr. Barry. But we've done some behind the scenes stuff, but we legitimately have, like, you could film a feature film with everything that we put together to film this. So, and it has to be that way. If we want to reach millions of people, it has to be to this quality. So unfortunately, it's pretty expensive doing it. So we are still raising funds. If people are interested in donating, the best way to donate is through the GoFundMe, which Laura has here on the screen. Or it's easier to remember if it's donate.healinghumanity.movie. If you go there, you could donate. And yeah, like I said, I always assure people every penny from the donations goes 100% towards the documentary. The goal is to help the hopeless and reach more people, and just give this to them as an additional tool in their toolbox. Because there's a lot of people out there that are hopeless, that it's just do it's right here. Here's an option for you. I get so frustrated with that because I was lost for so long with the depression and anxiety, and this was the answer to it I was searching for. And unfortunately, now there's many, many more people that are depressed and anxious than I was 10 years ago. Something like over 1 billion people right now are suffering from depression and anxiety. And I think that's underreported because a lot of people don't talk about it, or they hide it. They don't go in
Sure.
and seek help for it. So
Especially veterans. I have a lot of veteran patients also. So that carnivore soldier, I love watching his stuff,
Larry,
and what he's doing. Yes, I have sent so many people to his channel because they don't ask for help. They don't talk about their feelings because they're strong. They've been taught to suck it up, go do what needs to be done. And so a couple of them are starting to do carnivore. They listened to me, but they were like, "Yeah." And then I was like, "Go look at this guy. Here's how you
yeah,
get to him." And both of them that I have that are in their 50s, they're going to start it. And I'm like, "Yes." And I was
that's
like, "Let's
awesome.
get you healthy and healthy everywhere." Not It's important to have your body healthy, but you got to have the brain, too. And when you see people who've had brain injuries like Adam, and
Hmm.
who was able to, fix those kinds of things. I've seen children that had what's called an axonal shift in the brain that usually leaves them really, very, very hard to understand for them to walk. All their motors are, um, incapacitated. I've seen them do such healing with that too. So I think that's important. So, well, we're going to be getting ready to end this. So, can you tell everybody your site so that they can see you on YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. I still have my homesteading YouTube channel. So the name of my channel is Homestead How. It's mostly just carnivore content at this point because that's what I'm passionate about. But we also have the website, which I mentioned earlier, donate.healinghumanity.movie. And we have a YouTube channel for that as well. It's Healing Humanity Movie on YouTube. And we post more of the, like, film and Dr. Barry and things like that on that site. So um, yeah, that's kind of my stuff.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, and I think a lot of people have seen you, but I think it's always good to get more information, spread out to more people so that they can help. And times are tough, but it's like buying these kinds of things off of the website. It's not that expensive. I needed a water bottle anyway, so I was like, why not? And then, that money's going to go towards that. So I think it's a wonderful thing that you are doing, and, I say keep doing, and that's all I really have for you.
That's great. I This has been wonderful, Laura. Really, I really enjoyed this, and I love what you're doing. The world needs more healthcare professionals like you, for sure. Um, yeah, and thank you
I
so
think
much
we're
for all
getting
your
there.
support. Yeah, hopefully,
Yeah,
baby steps, right?
yeah,
Um,
that's right.
but I really
Yeah,
appreciate all your support and getting the shirt and having me on the channel and everything like that too. So I always tell this to people. I'm like making so many friends on carnivore. So if you ever need anything, I gotta have you over on my channel at some point for sure. We can
sure.
do a
Yep,
video over.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do
'Cause
it.
yeah, I I've got the gift of gab. I like to prep, like to do all those things. So yeah, we'll definitely have a good conversation. So, well, I appreciate you. Thank you everybody for coming on and asking your questions and giving us your comments. We appreciate it. Until I see you guys, I think Friday, I think Rabbi Carnivore, I think his name is going to interview me. So I will see everybody on Friday and see how that goes. So
Awesome.
I might get me some religion on top of everything else.
There you go.
So all right. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you again, Carrie.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Perfect. I wanted to make sure you had everything. There we go.